Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We're doing our new series where we're not quite reviewing units now, but we're going to be putting my sort of personal spin on how I personally use said units from the Necrons Codex. And other codexes, I suppose, if we get onto that further down the line. Now today we're going to be looking at the Canoptek Doomstalker. So I'm going to go through how I use it, what I do with it, and then at the end of the video, the main concept of these videos is, do I rate it or do I hate it? Very simple, and why. So let's move straight into the data card, the data sheet for the Canoptek Doomstalker. So this thing's coming in at 135 points, and these are the statistics. So you're getting a movement of 8 inches, which is pretty good, but you don't really want to be moving so much because you've got the heavy keyword associated with the weapon, which is the Doomsday Blaster. We'll get onto that in a moment. The toughness is 8, so it's kind of like having a light vehicle. 3+ armor with a 4+ invulnerable save, not bad, with 12 wounds on top. Leadership 8+, and the OC is 4, which is respectable. Now the main reason for taking a Canoptek Doomstalker is for the Doomsday Blaster. So this goes through the blaster, it's got blast and it's got heavy. So if it stays stationary, you're going to get that +1 to the hit roll, which I think is key. You want to be hitting on a better blister skill because, as you'll see in a moment, the blister skill is only a 4+. It's got 48-inch range, D6 +1 attacks, with blast of course, don't forget. Hitting on 4s, potentially 3s, strength 14, -3 AP, and the damage is 3. Now, you could be firing this as an anti-monster and anti-vehicle kind of weapon. It's not got the damage D6 like it did in previous editions, but 3 every time isn't bad. Now what I've been doing with this thing in the more recent games is firing it at elite infantry and those mounted kind of units and things that have got a number of wounds but the toughness isn't that great. And I'm doing that because of blast. Blast, you're getting an extra attacks. If you've got a 5-man unit, that's going to be D6 +1 +1 for the blast, 10-man units +2 and so on. But as mentioned, you could also make use of that strength 14 and fire it at something that's sort of toughness 10, toughness 11, toughness 12, and you're still wounding on 3s. Now you can be using the Sentinel Construct ability, which you can see on the right hand side of the screen, so you can actually use Overwatch or the Fire Overwatch stratagem in your opponent's movement phase or in the opponent's charge phase, and you're going to be hitting on a 5+ rather than a 6+. When you've got a lot of shots, that's not the worst, that's not too bad. You probably will get a couple to go through on a 5+. That's if you roll high, I suppose, on the amount of shots you've actually got. But bear in mind, this isn't even your turn. Going back to those ranged weapons, you've also got the Twin Gauss Flare. Now, it's only going to be one shot, but you got rapid fire on it. Lethal hits, twin linked. It's basically an extra added shot at something light. Don't expect too much. And the melee weapons, again, don't expect too much. You've got 3 attacks. You're hitting on 4, strength 6, no AP, 1 damage. It's not really meant for melee. You don't really want to be stuck in melee, although vehicles and monsters this edition can actually fire out, not a problem. As for other abilities, in terms of the core ability, Deadly Demise D3, that's kind of standard for a vehicle, and you've got reanimation protocols of course, so you're going to be healing in your own command phase D3 lost wounds. It does have a damage table, anything below 4 wounds or less, you're subtracting 1 from the hit roll. That is not where you want to be really, because you're already potentially hitting on 4s. Even with heavy, it's going to completely counteract that, so you'll still be hitting on 4s. So that's not where you want to be with only 4 wounds left or 1/3 of your wounds remaining. You want to be making sure this thing can actually heal. So that is the data card. What are my tactics for using the Canoptek Doomstalker? So my go-to detachment from the Necrons Codex when using the Doomstalker would be the Canoptek Court, because of course it's a Canoptek unit. The Canoptek Court allows you to reroll all your hit rolls of a 1, and if you're within your power matrix, which you probably will be because of the range of the weapon, you get to reroll everything. So if you stay stationary, you're hitting on 3s, rerolling everything, D6 +1 plus blast number of shots. That massively amplifies how much damage this thing's actually going to do. And those rerolls are also going to apply to the ability, the Sentinel Constructs ability for the Overwatch on a 5+, getting to reroll everything. That is definitely worth doing. Now there are a few stratagems I would consider when using this detachment on your Doomstalker. You've got the reactive subroutines, so if the enemy gets within 9 inches you can make a normal move up to 6 inches, That will just keep it out of dodge for at least another turn, because that charge move is going to be slightly more difficult for your opponent to make. Unless they're really close, then maybe there's no point to it. You've got the suboptimal facade, which is sort of a backdoor option. If he does get charged, you get to use your reanimation protocols on the spot. So that could gain him a few more wounds. Maybe, on average, you're going to get 2 back there. That may keep it up and running. And then you've got the signature of eradication to turn on devastating wounds. Now this one is 2 CP. I have used this one in the past, and I think I used it more as a desperation, because you can use it on other units of course, but I did use it on the Doomstalker and it did work fairly well. But I think I would probably prefer to be using this on things such as your Canoptek Wraiths as an example. The last one I wanted to mention is the counter-temporal shift. It's only 1 CP and you can virtually make it lone operative against an enemy attack or an enemy unit for that phase. So if you're going up against, I don't know, some Tau battlesuits and they're gunning down at our Canoptek Doomstalker, well, if they're not within 12 inches, they're not going to be firing at it. So which could, again, massively change what your opponent's going to be doing, especially if they've left that unit till sort of last in terms of their, the order of their shooting. That could really mess them up. Now that's the Canoptek Court, but in general, what I like to do with the Doomstalker, I like to run a pair of them, maybe even 3 at a push, depends on the game size I suppose. If you've got a 2k game, definitely want 3. 1k, you'll probably squeeze 2 at the maximum. Now we don't have that Sovereign Corona enhancement anymore like we did in the Index, so we can't get that +1 to the hit roll if you've got a lone Technomancer nearby or a Hexmark Destroyer. We can't be doing that anymore. They have changed the enhancement, but that was for the Awakened Dynasty anyway. Ideally you want to be using the Canoptek Court. Now we do have some units that we could use as a backup, which is what I tend to like to go to. Again, kind of Canoptek Court related. You've got the Canoptek Spiders. With the Fabricator Claw Array, they've got the Feel No Pain save for vehicles within an aura. A 6+ Feel No Pain save, not bad. The Gloom Prism again gives another Feel No Pain save of a 5+, but that's against mortal wounds and psychic attacks. Situational, I suppose. If you're going up against Thousand Suns, maybe Tyranids, Grey Knights, and so on, then yeah, that could be a decent option. Canoptek Reanimators, although they have been nerfed this codex, you can still have one within 3 inches, I suppose, and you can then get your reanimation protocols, an extra D3. That will be handy in our command phase. Technomancers can heal D3 lost wounds, although that happens in the movement phase, and the problem is the Technomancers are now best served with the Canoptek Wraiths, and they go 10 inches. They're moving 10 inches, so they're not going to really stay in our home area, in our home objective area. So the likelihood is the Technomancer's not going to be anywhere near the Doomstalker. That's what I'm finding anyway. But overall, I think the Doomstalker is a decent, reliable source of damage. And for only 135 points a pop, I think that's good. I think that's cheap. So we're at the part of the video where I need to make a decision. Do I rate it or do I hate it? And for me, this one, I rate it. I think it's decent. Now there are some competing units such as your Doomsday Ark, your Locust Heavy Destroyers, maybe even the Necron Monolith with the Hypercrypt Legion. They've all got the the high damage profiles with their weapons. But for 135 points, I think you're winning. I think you're doing fine with the Canoptek Doomstalker. It's worth its points, and it does enough for me. So yeah, that is why I rate it. So guys, you'll have to let me know down in the comments below. Do you rate it? Do you hate it? And also, how do you use it? What are your tactics? Let's share it all about and learn from it. But guys, I'll see you in the next one.